Welcome to Above Par. I'm your host, Kathy Hartwood. I show you how to take more of your talent to the golf course without practicing harder, taking more lessons, or buying new equipment. I show you how to end the frustration of underperforming so you can start playing to your potential. This is where you are going to learn how to think above par so you can play below par. Let's get to it. Hello, my golf friend. Welcome back to Above Par. Thank you for being here and listening. Hope you're playing some amazing golf, shooting some of your acceptable scores, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. This is a topic that I talked about inside of the membership in our club, and I wanted to share it with you because often I coach people on what are acceptable scores. And so I want you to take a moment, and ask yourself, what is your acceptable score? So on the low end, what number, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're going to tell me it's 68 or if you're going to tell me it's 88 or if it's 98, whatever it is for you. What number, if you shot that, would you be really excited about your day? Would you be really proud and feel like you were fulfilled with your round? And it's reasonable that you could possibly do it. What would that number be? Then I want you to ask yourself, what number would be just your meh, like your average, like, that's typical number that you shoot or what you think you should shoot. So maybe your low number is 72. I'm going to give you one example. 77, you're like, I'm not ticked off, but I'm not super happy. I know I'm telling myself I could have done better, but it was an okay day of golf. And then I want to know what that number is where you're like, that was a bad day. That was no fun. I didn't like it. And I get that we can go all the way up and shoot some crazy numbers, but in your range of numbers that you would shoot, maybe that's 83. Sometimes people will tell me that they have a number that is just absolutely unacceptable for them, right? It's like, I can deal with shooting 76, but 77, nope. I'm not going to talk to anybody the rest of the day. Don't even come near me. Or anything over 80 and I'm throwing the clubs in the back of my car and I'm taking off and I'm going to go home and eat a gallon of ice cream. Like some people have those numbers. They're just random. We've attached a story to them in our head. But if you have that number, I want you to just make note of that too. So then you want to question, do you have an acceptable range in there of what you think you should shoot? Right? Should you shoot anywhere from 74 to 80? That's your range. On any given day, that's what you think you're going to shoot. Right? I want you to get really clear on how, and I've talked about this before, on how numbers can make us feel a certain way, but in your head, what you think your acceptable range of scores is, whatever the proper English is. And then I want you also to think about how you identify yourself as a golfer. Are you above average, below average? Do you even know? Do you think you're not good enough and that you should be shooting lower? All right, because I want to share with you that the average handicap for men is 14.2 and the average handicap for women is 27.5. So if you're a woman listening to this and your handicap is below 27.5, you are above average for women who play golf who keep a handicap. Keep in mind, there's lots and lots, millions probably, of golfers who do not keep a handicap. These are the people who are putting in a score into the USGA. And if you're below 14.2 for men, you are above average. How do you view yourself with those numbers? You can actually go and find all the data on where you rank relative to your handicap. But it's so interesting to look at our perception about what we think is acceptable. And where our emotions get a little out of sorts when we shoot numbers. We shoot numbers that are higher than our handicap. We often think I should play to my handicap. That's acceptable. Right? We do the math. If I'm a 5 handicap, I should shoot 77 on a par 72. That's my handicap. Of course, there's slope that comes into play and what tees you're playing. I get that. But just say, in general, if I'm a 5 handicap, in my head, I think I should shoot 77. And if I shoot 78 or 79 or 80 or 81, I haven't played well. I haven't had a good day. I stunk, right? I start beating myself up a little bit. I start judging my round. I start shooting all over myself. Right? Okay, so I want you to keep in mind, one, where do you rank relative to handicaps as far as those average handicaps go relative to the USGA? That's not all golfers. I promise you that number would be way higher if it was all golfers. Are you better than you thought? And then two, relative to your handicap, what do you say that you should shoot? Because there is a difference between what your average score is and what your handicap is. Now, I'm not claiming to be a handicap expert, but your handicap is based off of your low 8 scores. It is the average of your low 8 scores. Your average score is your average score. Let's say of 20 scores. What is your average? You add them all up and you divide by 20. That's your average. So the average score that you would shoot is typically 4 to 5 strokes higher than your index. And if you're a higher handicap, it's 6 to 8 strokes higher. Okay, so my average score, if I'm a 5 handicap, is going to be about 10 shots higher than my handicap. My average score might be 82. Taking in a 87, taking in a 72, I average them all out. That's where I average. It is not my handicap. So the point of me wanting to share this with you is that who you are and how you get to talk to yourself needs to be based in facts, especially about numbers, especially about your handicap, especially about your score. I want you to get really aware if numbers will dictate how you feel. And I'm not saying that we don't feel better when we're shooting 5 shots lower than our average or 5 shots lower than our handicap. If you're a 5 handicap and you're shooting 72, I'm not saying that doesn't feel good. Of course it feels good. And we're happy and we're excited. And I'm also not saying that if you're 5 shots over your average, if you're shooting in the upper or higher 80s and you're a 5 handicap, that you're not going to be disappointed and you're not going to be upset. And you're not necessarily going to think that that was not as fun of a day as it was to shoot 72. Of course. But it's how you get to treat yourself, how you get to talk about yourself, how you get to feel, that matters. Because the more pressure you put on yourself to create a number that might not even be based in reality, this is why I'm sharing this with you, the more pressure you put on yourself to shoot that number because of how you get to feel, the harder it is for you to show up on the golf course. It's hanging out with you all day. You're backhanding yourself in your golf game to shoot a number so you get to feel a certain way or not feel a certain way. Right? I need to play really well today so I don't shoot 87, so I don't beat the crap out of myself, so I don't shame myself for 5 hours and I go hide and eat ice cream and gain weight. Right? Whatever it might be. But maybe you're beating yourself up over scores that's who you are. That is your average. The truth is that sometimes you have higher numbers. And the truth is sometimes you have lower numbers. Right? We're basing how we should play based on our handicap, which is based on your low 8 scores, not your average score. And your average score is 4 to 5 shots higher than your handicap. And where you rank relative to all the golfers on the planet is probably better than you think it is. So I'm sharing this podcast with you to help you shift your identity about how you are as a golfer, maybe how you rate, what your expectations should be when you go out and play or get to be when you go out and play, and how you treat yourself based on a number. And maybe, just maybe, you've been wrong about what you should shoot and what you do shoot. So give yourself some more grace in your range of acceptable scores. Did you play to your handicap? Because if you did, you actually shot 4 to 5 shots lower than your average. Did you play lower than your handicap? Amazing. Did you play higher than your handicap? That's who you are. And every once in a while, the truth is, I'm going to have a really wonky score. Golf is an average. There is a range. You are not going out there and shooting 77 every single day to get a 5 handicap. That's not the way it works. Right? So I just want you to check in with how you're identifying about numbers, how you're treating yourself based on your handicap, and how you're shooting all over yourself. And maybe reframe the way you look at the acceptable scores that you are willing to tolerate when you go out and play golf. And hopefully if you can take a little bit of pressure off of that, have a little more grace for yourself, that average will come down. All right, my friends, have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday. If you want to reach out to me and stay connected, make sure you head to kathyhartwood.com/join. All right, bye.